Hello everyone! Today we have another video, one of the only positive things to come out of Clan Wars, where I'm not really streaming for about 2 weeks. Hopefully this will be a little bit interesting. I'm going to try and keep it a little bit on the shorter side, but I just want to talk about, with the announcement of the new Battle Pass coming, what you should probably be spending your tokens on. Now, at the end of the day, that is obviously up to you. You might feel a bit differently on some things, or, you know, whatever it might be. Regardless, this is just going to be my general opinion on what I feel is the best use of your tokens. So, as you'll see in the background, and if you're familiar with me on the stream at all, you'll know my, I guess, love and simultaneous disdain for the Cobra, one of the most horrifying vehicles that Wargaming has ever had the gall of adding to the game, and you can see this VZ is figuring that out right now. It's a shame I couldn't get all 4, but I'll definitely take a free 3, I guess, brutal pen shots on the VZ for, what is that, like almost 1400 damage. Regardless, I've made a review on this before, and I really can't speak highly of it enough. If you want to see more things like that, and arguably a lot more egregious, check out the Cobra review. I made it, I think, late last year, or early last year, whatever it was at this point. It's been so long. Even if you just watch the first 2 minutes of it, I really could not praise this thing highly enough. It is disgusting. However, I'll throw up a list here on screen now just to show you what else is available. Once you end up getting the Cobra, I'd really recommend leaning towards, I don't know. I'm going to assume, let's say that you have nothing available, right? And you're working from zero. So primarily, start off, go for the Cobra, then that is admittedly going to take a huge amount of your tokens. From there, though, I'd say the AE Phase 1, if you don't have it, is, I don't know, I want to say it's kind of like an Ohio or I guess a Montana in World of Warships, where it's not particularly cool in the realm, like, you don't have any major gimmick. I mean, the Ohio, I guess, kind of does, but that's, regardless. My point is, there's no, like, weird gimmick the way the Cobra has, or the Kunzenpanzer, or the Char, which we'll get into in a minute anyway, but they're just straight up good. There's nothing, you know, particularly like, wow, there's this one really crazy thing, like, this 705A is figuring out really quick. But the Phase 1, it's a lot like the E5. It's very typical for any American kind of heavy, or even generally any American tank. There's nothing really crazy about it. It's just straight up good. Then from there, you can kind of go from, like, I mean, even at this point, I'd say the Phase 1 and the Char are really the only, like, quote-unquote mandatory ones. I would recommend getting the Kunzenpanzer or the Char. It's really up to you. Both of them bring pretty unique gameplay that's not really found anywhere else. The Char is more of a mix of like a Leo PTA and a Batchat, which is really cool. A lot of people kind of shit on it when it first came out because everyone tried playing it like a Batchat. It's French, it's a medium, it's an autoloader, it's a Batchat. It's not a Batchat. That has something similar to the Lion, which you might be familiar with, that just came out recently, where it has a rather long interclip reload, being, I think, 4 seconds, if I remember right. It's been a long time since I've played it, but it definitely forces you to play a little bit differently. So you can't just YOLO in and mag dump people in the same way you could in a Batchat or, you know, a TVP, 50B, whatever, right? So it forces you to kind of think a little bit more, but you also don't have to deal with having a really inaccurate gun like the Batchat. The Char gun, generally, is a bit more on the accurate side, which is pretty cool, because it melds two very fun playstyles, at least for me. Then you have the Kunzenpanzer, which I personally love. The main thing with it is it has a really weird siege mechanic. So you might be familiar with that from the UDES 1516 or the STB-1, for example. But this is a little bit different. So you do get the extra gun depression through the suspension. However, there are 2 little differences. So when you go in the like go fast mode, everything goes fast. You have worse gun handling. You have better reload though. Where the siege mode gives you more gun depression, so a little more flexible on a ridgeline, but you get a worse reload, meaning worse DPM, but better gun handling. So, very complicated way of explaining, it's cool to kind of play in a way where you have to juggle between the modes to maximize your DPM. You don't have to. You can play it very casually if you want to, but it's nice that it offers that, like, extra depth of gameplay that, at least in my opinion, nowadays feels very lost. Everything seems to be very one-dimensional, kind of like the Phase 1 you're seeing in the background, where you just show up, do the thing, and you don't have to think very hard. Which might be your speed, that's okay. I just like having that little bit of extra depth because it kind of keeps the game exciting. After the Cobra, the Phase 1, the Char, and the Kunstpanzer, the freedom really opens up to you. There's nothing left that is particularly interesting, in my opinion, outside of the new stuff, which we'll get into in a minute here, being the KPZ-03, I think it is, and the BZ-58. But we'll hold off on those for a minute. So the thing being about the, 777 version 2 and the Lorraine 50T and the K91. If you want my opinion, which I assume you do if you're watching this to some degree or another, I really would advocate for the K91. Somehow I had one of my best games ever in that thing. I think it was like 9,000 damage in a tier 9, which pretty wicked. Big fan. But it's definitely a bit more of a unique style in the sense that I don't think it's very like broadly appealing, if that makes sense. It plays a little similar to like a WZ-120 GFT, I think it is, the Chinese tank destroyer, which I'm a big fan of. The other thing is, really all three of them are pretty unflattering, but maybe some people will feel differently here, but I genuinely have immense disdain for the 777 version 2. It is the most boring, unappealing, just uninteresting tank, probably at tier 9 for me. It brings nothing cool to the table. It's kind of slow. I mean, it has, I think, 340 heat, if I remember right. It's been a very long time since I played it. The armor is lacking. The gun handling is lacking. The DPM is lacking. Just nothing about it feels good, like in any way, to me. Now, I know there are people who will say, I love the 777. The armor works great. The gun's pretty good. Fine. Sure. Whatever. But for me, I could not, in good conscience, recommend it to anybody. I'm sure you can find a million reviews online or whatever. So definitely don't just take my opinion and see if it might end up being for you. Then you have the Lorraine 50T, which I had to spend about 3 seconds remembering even existed. I have not played that thing in a very long time. I do own it. I think just because I was going to have my tokens expire and I may as well just collect everything at this point. But the thing is, it is super forgettable. By looking at it, you might feel that, oh, this looks just like the AMX M4, or it looks like the AMX M451. I love those. No, my man. No. You have very much a Lorraine-style hull where it has, like, 0 armor. It is rather fast, but the DPM is pretty ass, and the turret isn't very good either. Just overall, pretty lackluster addition to the game. It's extremely forgettable. There's a reason you don't see them in battles basically ever anymore. I just don't recommend it outside of collector purposes, especially at 18 tokens. It is just straight up not worth it. So anyway, now we're going to get into 2 of the newer ones. This is where we kind of get into new territory. These are tanks I currently have not played at the time of recording this video. But, you know, I was going to say even if I could, I couldn't tell you, but I legitimately have not played them yet because the announcement only got made recently. But anyway, the point being, these things seem really cool and really boring. The KPZ-03, I think that's what it's called. Forgive me if I'm saying it wrong or whatever. Seems really cool. So it actually has some mechanics similar to the STRV-103B with the siege mode and all that, right? But it also has some pretty solid hull armor. I didn't actually realize this until I went to research it before on Tanks GG. But it has, I think, a 45mm like upper plate, which would require pretty chunky guns to be able to pen it, which is kind of nice, because if you've seen me play on stream at all, you'll know that I'm a really, really big fan of playing the STRV really, really aggressive. A lot of people tend to play them like, this thing is sneaky, it has good DPM, it has good camo, I'm going to sit in a bush, right? But it has really good armor as well. So I've been a really huge fan of playing it very aggressive, and I've been very delighted to see that this could also offer that, because very briefly, and I hope I don't mess this up, Overmatch is gun caliber times 3 plus 1 to pen it. So 45 millimeters gives you a lot of freedom. You're not going to get penned by 130 millimeter guns, which is very typical for a lot of vehicles at that tier. Or 120s are going to be, you know, kind of free. The only problem you're going to get into is heat and all that, but, you know, that's fine. It's just nice to have something that might be able to be a little more aggressive and utilize that DPM. Just, if I remember right, I think it gets like 3200 DPM base on top of some really, really fast APCR, pretty good heat pen, just a nice chunk. It all depends how flexible it is, kind of like the Sturv, where you can kind of wiggle the gun around and all that. But regardless, onto the BZ58, which at least for me, let me pull it up here on Tanks GG. BZ58, what is it, version 2, I think? Seems exceptionally boring to me. I heard it got nerfed, but I might not be right about that. So you do have 520 Alpha, which, again, if you've seen me on stream, play the E75 for a while, or even the E100, you'll know I love that kind of just barely over 500 Alpha, whether it's 520, 530, 560 really feels good. For example, the Yag Tiger, but the DPM actually doesn't seem that bad. 2200 with a 14-second, well, just under 14-second base reload time, 250 standard pen. You do get some APCR prem, which is pretty interesting. 1250 shell velocity, 303 millimeters of pen. Kind of whatever to me. I don't know. It doesn't seem that cool. The armor does seem rather nice. You do get 8 degrees of gun depression, which if it is using its gun depression, does have some pretty small weak points on the front, being left and right of the gun with about 250 pen. But the rest of it, if you miss, you're pretty much not going to pen with a lot of vehicles outside of, you know, a high RNG pen roll and all that. But it's just, it comes across more like the Phase 1, and to pay, what is it, 24 tokens, I think it is, for basically a Phase 1, I don't know if I'm into that. I'd much rather be rolling around in a Cobra or, you know, that new, like, German Sturb or whatever. It's pretty slow. You do have a 35 km/h top speed. I don't know. I mean, people might enjoy this, again, in the same way people enjoy the Phase 1. Then again, I also enjoy the Phase 1, so I don't know what that really means. But overall, the general order I would give you as far as, you know, what you should buy these vehicles in would have to be, again, this is just my opinion, feel free, change up however you like. It'd have to be a Cobra first, a Phase 1 second, probably Kunze-Panzer third, then a Char, then a Kennedy 1, Object 777, Lorraine, and then, you know, so on and so forth. But assuming you have nothing. In my case, I'm going to get the KPZ, then the BZ, because I have everything else, but that doesn't really help you guys very much, does it? Anyway, hopefully that does cover any of the questions you guys really had as far as those vehicles. If you want any clarification, please feel free to comment down below or in the stream or in Discord, and I'll do my best to get back to you. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any suggestions for some new videos or any content you'd like me to cover, please let me know. This whole video actually came from a suggestion from somebody on my stream, which, by the way, I stream every day at 6 p.m. Eastern over on twitch.tv. You can check out the link down below. Regardless, for the second time now, have a lovely evening, or I guess, well, I won't really know when you're watching this. Regardless, thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys next time.